The alarm screams. It is 5 in the morning. Your body says no. Every cell begs for warmth. The blanket feels like armor. The pillow whispers, "Stay." This moment defines everything. Most people hit snooze. They lose their life 9 minutes at a time. They trade their future for 5 more minutes of comfort. And they wonder why nothing ever changes. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone with half your talent is outworking you. Someone with fewer resources is building more. Someone with less potential is achieving more. The difference between you and them comes down to one thing. They learned something you have not. They learned to love the struggle. What if discomfort was the doorway, not the obstacle? What if every moment of resistance was actually a gift wrapped in suffering? What if the very thing you have been avoiding holds every answer you have been seeking? Navy SEALs have a phrase for this. When everything hurts, when the body wants to quit, when the mind screams for relief, they say 3 words. Embrace the suck. Those 3 words have carried warriors through hell. They have transformed ordinary people into legends. They rewire how the human brain processes suffering itself. The world's highest performers share one counterintuitive habit. From elite athletes to billionaire entrepreneurs, from special forces operators to record-breaking scientists, they all do something that looks insane to everyone else. They deliberately seek discomfort. They run toward what others run from. They hunt the hard thing while the rest of humanity hides from it. There is a reason your brain lies to you at the edge of discomfort. There is a biological explanation for why every fiber of your being screams stop when you still have so much left to give. And there is a simple technique to override that lie. A mental switch that changes everything. This audiobook will not make your life easier. Nothing worth hearing will ever promise you that. Instead, this audiobook will make you dangerous. It will make you the kind of person who walks into struggle with a smile. The kind of person who sees obstacles as opportunities. The kind of person who makes other people wonder what you know that they do not. By the time these words end, you will think differently about pain. You will feel differently about difficulty. You will crave resistance the way you once craved comfort. The transformation will not happen because of some motivational trick. It will happen because you will finally understand the truth that high performers have always known. The struggle is not in the way. The struggle is the way. Let us begin with the lie that has been running your life. You were born into a conspiracy, not the kind involving shadowy organizations or secret societies. Something far more insidious. A conspiracy so complete that you cannot see it even as it shapes your every decision. It is the comfort conspiracy, and it has been stealing your potential since the day you were born. Think about the world you live in. Every product, every service, every innovation of the past century has been designed with one goal in mind. Make life easier, make it smoother, remove friction, eliminate effort. Your great-grandparents had to chop wood to stay warm. You press a button. Your grandparents had to walk miles to communicate with someone. You tap a screen. Your parents had to wait days for entertainment. You have infinite content streaming into your pocket. On the surface, this seems like progress, and in many ways, it is. But there is a hidden cost that no one talks about. Every convenience we gain comes with a capacity we lose. Every friction we eliminate weakens a muscle we need. We have engineered weakness into the fabric of modern existence without even realizing we were doing it. Your brain evolved over millions of years, in an environment of constant challenge. Finding food required effort. Avoiding predators required vigilance. Surviving required daily struggle. Your ancestors faced more hardship before breakfast than you will face in a month. And because of that, their brains developed a sophisticated reward system. Overcome a challenge, get a hit of dopamine. Solve a problem, feel satisfaction. Push through pain, experience triumph. But here is the evolutionary mismatch that is destroying modern humans. Your brain still has that ancient reward system. It still craves the satisfaction of overcoming challenges. But you have removed almost all the challenges from your life. So your brain does something desperate. It starts manufacturing artificial challenges. It creates drama where none exists. It invents problems to worry about. It amplifies tiny obstacles into massive threats. Anxiety, depression, chronic dissatisfaction. These are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that your brain is starving for the struggle it was designed to experience. Consider what happens when you train an animal in captivity. Give a lion everything it needs without any effort, and what happens? It becomes listless, depressed. It paces back and forth. It loses its vitality. Its very life force dims. Zookeepers now know that animal welfare requires challenge. They hide food so animals have to search for it. They create obstacles so animals have to solve problems. They introduce difficulty because they understand something crucial. Ease is the enemy of thriving. You are that lion. Your comfortable life is that cage. And no one is coming to hide your food or create your obstacles. You have to do it yourself. The evidence is everywhere if you know how to look. Studies show that lottery winners, people who suddenly acquire everything they could want, often end up no happier than they were before. Sometimes they end up worse. Meanwhile, research on survivors of tremendous hardship, people who have endured unimaginable difficulty, often reveals something surprising. Many of them describe their struggle as the most meaningful period of their lives, not despite the pain, but because of it. There was a famous experiment conducted at Stanford University in the late 1960s. Researchers offered young children a choice. They could have one marshmallow now, or they could wait 15 minutes and receive 2 marshmallows. Some children grabbed the single marshmallow immediately. Others managed to delay their gratification and earned the second treat. The researchers then followed these children for decades. What they found changed our understanding of success forever. The children who could resist the immediate comfort, who could tolerate the discomfort of waiting, dramatically outperformed their peers in almost every measurable way. Higher test scores, better relationships, more career success, greater life satisfaction. The ability to embrace short-term discomfort for long-term gain predicted life outcomes better than IQ, family background, or any other factor. But here is what most people miss about that study. The children who succeeded were not born with more willpower. They did not have some genetic gift for delayed gratification. When researchers looked closer, they found something else. The successful children had developed strategies for sitting with discomfort. They had learned techniques for tolerating the suck. One child sang songs to herself while she waited. Another covered her eyes so she would not see the marshmallow. Another imagined the treat was just a picture, not a real thing she could eat. They had discovered, even at that young age, that discomfort is something you can work with, something you can transform, something you can embrace. And here you are, decades later, still grabbing the single marshmallow. still choosing immediate comfort over delayed reward, still running from the very discomfort that could set you free. But it is not your fault, not entirely. You have been trained to avoid discomfort since birth. Your parents protected you from it. Your teachers sheltered you from it. Every advertisement you have ever seen promised to eliminate it. You have absorbed a single message from 1,000 different sources. Discomfort is bad. Comfort is good. Avoid pain. Seek pleasure. Consider how thoroughly this message has infiltrated your life. The ergonomic chair that prevents any strain on your body. The streaming service that prevents any delay in your entertainment. The delivery app that prevents any effort in acquiring food. The climate control that prevents any variation in temperature. The notification settings that prevent any moment of boredom. None of these things are bad in themselves, but together they create an environment of constant, pervasive ease. An environment where discomfort becomes unusual rather than expected. An environment where your capacity to handle difficulty atrophies from disuse. And the atrophied capacity affects everything else. When you spend all day in environments calibrated for maximum comfort, any discomfort feels extreme. A slightly long line becomes intolerable. A minor disagreement becomes devastating. A small setback becomes catastrophic. Your baseline has shifted so far toward ease that anything remotely difficult feels like an emergency. You might have noticed this in yourself. A shorter fuse than you used to have, less patience for inconvenience, more frustration with minor obstacles. These are symptoms of comfort addiction. Your tolerance has decreased because your exposure has decreased. The solution is not to make life harder for the sake of making it harder. The solution is to deliberately recalibrate your baseline through voluntary discomfort, to rebuild the tolerance you have lost, to expand your range back to where it should be. This message is a lie. It is the central lie of modern existence, and it is time to unlearn it. Let me tell you about Elena. She was 34 years old, successful by every external measure, and completely hollow inside. She had optimized her entire life for comfort. She chose the safe career, the predictable relationship, the routine that never surprised her. She thought she was being smart. She thought she was winning. Then her younger brother called one evening with news that shattered her carefully constructed world. He had just summited Denali, the highest peak in North America, 20,000 feet of ice and wind and danger. Elena felt something she did not expect, not pride for her brother, though that was there. Something else, something that burned, jealousy, envy, a desperate longing for something she had spent her whole life avoiding. Her brother's voice crackled through the phone, exhausted but alive, in a way she had never heard before. "You should have seen it up there, Elena. I thought I was going to die about 15 times. My fingers were so cold I could not feel them for 6 hours. One of our team members had to turn back with frostbite, and it was the most incredible experience of my entire life." Elena could not speak. Something was breaking open inside her. "I know it sounds crazy," her brother continued, "but when everything is that hard, when you are pushed to the absolute edge of what you can handle, you find out who you really are. You find out what really matters. All the comfortable stuff we fill our lives with, it just disappears. And what is left is something real." That night, Elena could not sleep. She kept thinking about her brother's words. When everything is that hard, you find out who you really are. She had spent 34 years making sure nothing was ever that hard. which meant she had spent 34 years never finding out who she really was. The next morning, Elena signed up for a cold water swimming class, not because she had any interest in cold water swimming, but because it was the hardest thing she could think of that would not kill her. That was 3 years ago. Today, Elena has completed 2 ultra-marathons, started a business that terrified her, and ended the relationship that had been slowly draining her life force. She is not successful by external measures anymore. She is actually happy. What changed, she told a friend recently, is that I stopped trying to avoid discomfort and started seeking it. I learned that the struggle was not the enemy. The struggle was the doorway. Every time I walked through it, I became more of who I was supposed to be. Here is the truth that changes everything. Discomfort is information. It is a signal that you are at the edge of your current capacity. It is a sign that growth is available. When you feel the burn during exercise, that is your muscles telling you they are adapting. When you feel confusion while learning something new, that is your brain forming new connections. When you feel fear before a difficult conversation, that is your courage being forged. The discomfort is not the obstacle. The discomfort is the progress. Think about every meaningful accomplishment in your life. Did any of them come easy? Was there anything you are proud of that did not require struggle? The promotion you earned, the relationship you built, the skill you developed, the obstacle you overcame. Every single one of them required you to push through discomfort. Every single one of them asked you to embrace the suck, at least for a moment. Now think about your regrets, the opportunities you did not take, the dreams you did not pursue, the potential you left on the table. What stopped you? In almost every case, if you are honest with yourself, the answer is discomfort. You saw the path to what you wanted, and it looked hard. It looked uncomfortable. So you chose the easier road. And that easier road led you somewhere you never wanted to be. This is the hidden cost of comfort seeking. It feels like self-care in the moment. It feels like you are being kind to yourself. But every time you choose comfort over growth, you are actually choosing a worse version of your future. You are choosing to stay the same while life demands that you evolve. You are choosing slow decay over active growth. And the cruelest part? It does not even work. The comfort you seek never satisfies. That is why you have to keep seeking it. The snooze button does not make you more rested. The avoided conversation does not make the relationship easier. The skipped workout does not make your body feel better. Every comfort you grab turns to ash in your hand, while the discomfort you avoided waits patiently for your return. But there is another way, a path that seems harder at first, but actually leads somewhere you want to go. A door that looks like a wall until you learn to see it clearly. That door is called embracing the suck, and learning to walk through it will change everything. Not all discomfort is created equal. This is crucial to understand before we go any further. There is productive discomfort that builds you up, and there is destructive suffering that tears you down. Learning to tell the difference is one of the most important skills you will ever develop. Think of it as a spectrum with 4 distinct zones. At one end, you have complete comfort. Nothing challenging you, nothing pushing you, nothing asking you to grow. This is the death zone. Not death of the body, but death of the spirit. Stay here too long and you will feel yourself withering from the inside out. Move along the spectrum, and you reach productive discomfort. This is where the magic happens. This is the challenge that stretches you without breaking you, the workout that makes your muscles burn but does not injure them, the difficult conversation that creates connection instead of destruction, the learning curve that frustrates your brain while expanding its capacity. Move further still, and you enter destructive suffering. This is discomfort that damages instead of builds. The injury you push through until it becomes chronic. The toxic relationship you endure because leaving feels harder. The overwork that grinds you into dust. This is the zone where grit becomes self-destruction, where perseverance becomes pathology. At the far end of the spectrum lies trauma. This is suffering so severe that it overwhelms your capacity to process it. This is not the suck to embrace. This is the suck to survive and then heal from. Your job is to learn to live in productive discomfort as much as possible, to push into that zone deliberately and repeatedly, to avoid the comfort trap on one side and the destruction trap on the other. This is the art of embracing the suck. Not blind suffering, not random hardship, but targeted purposeful discomfort that builds exactly what you need to build. The discomfort you face comes in 4 distinct flavors, and understanding each one is essential to your growth. First, there is physical discomfort, the burn in your lungs when you run, the ache in your muscles when you lift, the cold that makes you shiver, the hunger that makes you irritable. Your body has been sheltered from physical challenge, and it is weaker for it. Reclaiming physical discomfort tolerance is often the easiest place to start because the feedback is immediate and obvious. Second, there is mental discomfort, the frustration of learning something difficult, the confusion of grappling with complexity, the strain of sustained focus when your mind wants to wander. Your brain has been trained by endless distraction to expect constant novelty and stimulation. Reclaiming mental discomfort. Tolerance means sitting with difficult problems long after your attention wants to flee. Third, there is emotional discomfort, the vulnerability of honest expression, the fear of rejection, the anxiety of uncertainty, the grief of loss you have been avoiding. Your heart has been armored against feeling fully, and that armor now imprisons you. Reclaiming emotional discomfort tolerance means letting yourself feel what you have been running from. Fourth, there is social discomfort, the awkwardness of meeting new people, the tension of difficult conversations, the exposure of public speaking, the rejection of putting yourself out there. Your social instincts have been calibrated for tribal survival, and they overestimate danger at every turn. Reclaiming social discomfort tolerance means doing the scary interpersonal thing anyway. Take a moment right now to consider which of these 4 areas you avoid most consistently. Where does your comfort seeking show up strongest? Physical, mental, emotional, social? That area, the one you most want to avoid thinking about right now, is probably the one where your greatest growth awaits. Everyone has a pattern, a signature way of avoiding discomfort that has been refined over years of practice. Maybe you avoid physical discomfort by never pushing yourself in exercise. Maybe you avoid mental discomfort by abandoning difficult learning at the first sign of confusion. Maybe you avoid emotional discomfort by staying perpetually busy so you never have to feel. Maybe you avoid social discomfort by keeping relationships shallow enough that no one can really hurt you. Whatever your pattern, it was created for a reason. At some point, it protected you from something you were not ready to face, but that protection has become a prison. The walls that once kept danger out now keep growth out too. Consider what your life would look like if you deliberately faced each type of discomfort you currently avoid, if you sought out physical challenges instead of softness, if you engaged with mental difficulty instead of easy entertainment, if you allowed yourself to feel fully instead of numbing, if you took social risks instead of staying safe. That person, the one who faces all 4 quadrants of discomfort, is capable of things you currently cannot imagine. They have access to experiences you are currently locked out of. They live in a larger world than you do, simply because they are willing to be uncomfortable in more ways. This is not about becoming a masochist who seeks suffering for its own sake. It is about recognizing that your avoidance patterns are shaping your life in ways you may not have chosen consciously. And it is about taking back the power to choose. Here is a question worth sitting with. What specific form of discomfort have you been avoiding most consistently? And what has that avoidance cost you? Think carefully about this question. Do not rush past it. Your answer reveals more about your current limitations than almost anything else could. What have you not pursued because it would require physical discomfort? What skills have you not developed because the learning curve felt too steep? What relationships have you not deepened because emotional vulnerability felt too risky? What opportunities have you missed because putting yourself out there felt too exposed? Add up all those not dones, and you begin to see the true cost of your comfort seeking. A shadow life of things that might have been. A parallel version of yourself that existed only in potential because you were not willing to pay the admission price. The answer might be painful. That is the point. The pain of awareness is the first productive discomfort of your new journey. Do not run from it. Sit with it. Let it show you the truth of where you are and where you need to go. Now let us talk about what happens inside your body and brain when you encounter the edge of your comfort zone. Understanding this science will give you power over your own reactions. When you face something difficult, your brain runs a rapid assessment. Is this a threat or a challenge? The answer to that question determines everything that follows. If your brain categorizes the situation as a threat, it triggers a cascade of defensive responses. Stress hormones flood your system. Your thinking becomes narrow and rigid. Your body prepares for fight or flight. Everything in you screams retreat to safety. But if your brain categorizes the same situation as a challenge, something different happens. You still get arousal, still get energy, still get stress hormones. But the cocktail is different. Challenge states include more approach motivation, more openness, more cognitive flexibility. Your body prepares to engage rather than escape. Here is the remarkable thing. The situation itself does not determine which response you have. Your interpretation of the situation determines it. Two people can face the exact same difficulty, and one will have a threat response while the other has a challenge response. The difference is not in the situation. The difference is in the mind. This is why the phrase, "embrace the suck," is so powerful. It is a cognitive reframe delivered in 3 words. It takes something your brain wants to categorize as a threat and relabels it as something to embrace, something to accept, something to even love. The phrase itself shifts your nervous system from threat to challenge. There is a principle taught in elite military training circles called the 40% rule. It states that when your mind tells you that you are done, that you cannot go any further, that you have given everything you have actually only used about 40% of your capacity. Your brain is lying to you. It is being conservative. It is trying to protect you from a threat that does not actually exist. Navy SEALs discovered this through brutal experience. During the infamous Hell Week of SEAL training, candidates are pushed beyond anything they believed possible. They are cold, wet, exhausted, sleep-deprived, and suffering constantly for 5.5 days. Almost everything in them screams quit. But those who make it through discover something profound. They had far more in the tank than they knew. The breaking point their brain advertised was a lie. Research in exercise science confirms this. When people exercise to what they think is exhaustion, they still have significant physiological capacity remaining. Their muscles are not actually depleted. Their cardiovascular system could still perform. What gave out was not their body, but their brain's willingness to continue. Your brain evolved in an environment where energy conservation was crucial for survival. Burning calories you might need later could mean death. So your brain became conservative, stopping you long before true exhaustion to preserve reserves. This was adaptive when food was scarce and survival uncertain. But it is crippling in a world where your biggest physical challenge is deciding which streaming service to open. The implications of this mismatch are profound. Every time you feel like you cannot continue, you are feeling a survival mechanism designed for a world that no longer exists. Your brain is protecting you from threats that are not real. It is conserving energy you do not need to conserve. It is lying to you about your limits. I want you to think about the last time you stopped doing something hard. Maybe it was a workout. Maybe it was a difficult project. Maybe it was a challenging conversation. Whatever it was, remember the moment when you decided to stop. Now ask yourself honestly, were you actually at your limit? Or were you at your brain's conservative estimate of your limit? Could you have done more? Could you have pushed further? Could you have found another 10%? Somewhere inside you, if your life had depended on it. For most people, the honest answer is yes. There was more in the tank. The quit moment was not a real limit. It was a perceived limit, and perception can be changed. The 40% rule does not mean you should ignore all signals from your body. Genuine injury, genuine illness, genuine exhaustion still need to be respected. But it does mean you should be skeptical when your brain tells you that you cannot continue. Especially when the stakes are not life and death, your brain is probably lying. You probably have 60% left in the tank. This understanding changes everything. When you feel that urge to quit, you can recognize it as information about your brain's protective mechanisms, not information about your actual limits. You can feel the desire to stop and choose to continue anyway. You can embrace the suck because you know the suck is lying about how bad it really is. There is more happening in your brain when you push through discomfort than just willpower and grit. You are actually reshaping your neural architecture. Every time you face difficulty and do not run, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with persistence. Every time you feel the urge to quit and keep going anyway, you build new connections that make keeping going easier next time. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience. And it works just as well for building discomfort tolerance as it does for learning a language or playing an instrument. Each Repetition leaves a trace. Each push through resistance makes the next push slightly easier. You are not just surviving discomfort. You are training your brain to handle discomfort differently. The stress hormones that flood your system when you face challenge are not just unpleasant sensations to be endured. They are actually performance enhancers when channeled correctly. Cortisol heightens alertness. Adrenaline increases strength and speed. The stress response evolved to help you perform better under pressure, not to torture you. Elite performers in every domain have learned to reframe their stress response this way. Instead of thinking I am nervous and trying to calm down, they think I am excited and channel the energy. The physiological sensations are nearly identical. Only the interpretation differs, but that interpretation makes all the difference in performance. So, when you feel your heart racing before something difficult, when you feel your palms sweating and your stomach churning, try saying to yourself, I am ready instead of I am afraid. Your body is preparing you to perform. Let it do its job. Let me tell you about a man named Marcus who learned to embrace the suck in the most unlikely circumstances. Marcus had spent 15 years building a career in corporate finance. Corner office, six-figure salary, everything he thought he wanted. But somewhere along the way, he had stopped feeling anything at all. Work was comfortable, predictable, safe, and slowly suffocating him. One morning, Marcus was standing in line at his usual coffee shop when he overheard two young people talking about their weekend. One of them had just completed a marathon. The other had spent Saturday learning to rock climb. They were laughing about their failures and celebrating their progress, and something in their voices made Marcus realize he could not remember the last time he had felt that alive. That afternoon, Marcus signed up for a marathon. He had not run more than a mile in 20 years. The first training run was brutal. 3 blocks in, his lungs were burning, his legs were screaming, and his brain was producing an endless stream of reasons to stop. This was stupid. He was too old. He was going to hurt himself. Nobody needed to run 26 miles anyway. Marcus stopped running and walked home, feeling like a failure. But something had shifted. For the first time in years, he had felt something real. The discomfort, the struggle, the burning in his lungs. It was awful, and it was alive. That night, he could not stop thinking about it. The next morning, Marcus was back outside. He made it 4 blocks before stopping. The day after that, 5. Something was happening. Not just to his body, which was slowly adapting to the demand, but to his mind. He started looking forward to the struggle. He started craving that feeling of pushing against his limits. His coworkers asked what had gotten into him. "I'm learning to embrace the suck," he told them. They laughed. They did not understand. But Marcus did not need them to understand. He was starting to understand something for himself. By month 3, Marcus was running 5 miles without stopping. By month 5, 10. The marathon was still ahead, but it no longer seemed impossible. More importantly, the running had started bleeding into other areas of his life. He started speaking up in meetings when he disagreed with something. He started having the difficult conversations with his wife that they had been avoiding for years. He started looking at job opportunities that excited him instead of just ones that were safe. "I used to think comfort was the goal," Marcus told a friend. "Now I realize comfort was the cage. Every time I push through something hard, I become more of who I actually am." Marcus ran that marathon in just under 5 hours. not a record pace by any measure. But when he crossed the finish line, something had been transformed that had nothing to do with running. He had discovered that he could do hard things. And that discovery changed everything. The story of Marcus is not about running. It is about what happens when you stop running from discomfort and start running toward it. It is about the person you become when you learn to embrace the suck. Now let us talk about how to actually change the way you think about and respond to difficulty. This is where abstract understanding becomes practical skill. The first technique is called cognitive reappraisal. It is fancy language for a simple idea. You can change how a situation affects you by changing how you think about it. The event itself does not create your response. Your interpretation of the event creates your response. Change the interpretation, change the response. When you face something difficult, your brain automatically generates a story about what it means. That presentation at work means you might fail publicly. That hard conversation means you might be rejected. That challenging workout means you might experience pain. These stories trigger threat responses that make you want to flee. But you can intervene in this process. You can catch the automatic story and replace it with a different one. That presentation is a chance to grow my skills. That conversation is an opportunity to deepen the relationship. That workout is a way to become stronger. Same events, different stories, different emotional responses. This is not about lying to yourself or pretending things are easy when they are hard. It is about recognizing that there are multiple true stories you could tell about any situation and choosing the one that serves you best. Yes, the presentation might go badly. That is one true story. But it is also true that presentations become easier with practice, that even bad presentations teach you something, that avoiding presentations forever is its own kind of failure. All of these stories are true. You get to choose which one you live inside. Let me give you some concrete examples of cognitive reappraisal in action. The old story says, I am so nervous I might mess this up. The new story says, my body is preparing me to perform at my best. The old story says, this is too hard for me. The new story says, this is exactly hard enough to make me grow. The old story says, I hate that this is happening. The new story says, I am curious about what this will teach me. The old story says, I cannot believe I have to deal with this. The new story says, I get to prove what I am made of. The old story says, this should not be this difficult. The new story says, difficulty is what transforms people. Notice that the new stories do not deny the challenge. They do not pretend the situation is easy or pleasant. They simply frame the challenge in a way that mobilizes rather than paralyzes. They take the same raw material and construct something useful from it. You can practice cognitive reappraisal right now. Think of something difficult you are currently facing or anticipating. Notice the story your brain is automatically generating about it. Now consider 3 alternative stories that are equally true but more empowering. Feel how each story shifts your emotional state. Notice which one leaves you feeling more capable, more ready, more willing to engage. This is a skill you can develop. Like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. The more you catch your automatic stories and deliberately choose better ones, the more automatic the better stories become. Eventually, your brain starts generating empowering stories first, without any conscious intervention required. The second technique involves the language you use, both out loud and in your own head. Words are not just descriptions of reality. They shape reality. The words you use when facing difficulty directly influence how difficult it feels. There are words that weaken you. I have to do this. This is terrible. I cannot handle this. I am dying. These words frame you as a victim and the situation as your tormentor. They amplify suffering and diminish agency. Then there are words that weaponize you. I get to do this. This is training. I am building capacity. I am earning my transformation. These words frame you as a warrior and the situation as your sparring partner. They transmute suffering into purpose. Notice the difference between I have to go to the gym and I get to go to the gym. The first frames exercise as obligation, burden, something imposed on you from outside. The second frames it as opportunity, privilege, something you have chosen for yourself. The workout itself is identical, but the experience of the workout is entirely different. Start paying attention to your language. When you catch yourself using victim words, pause and reframe. Not because you should think positively or any of that greeting card nonsense, but because your word choice literally changes your biochemistry. Victim language triggers stress responses. Warrior language triggers challenge responses. Same situation, different chemistry, different capacity to perform. The third technique is building a new relationship with resistance itself. Most people have an adversarial relationship with difficulty. They see it as an enemy to be defeated, avoided, or endured. But what if you could see it as something else entirely? Think about how a martial artist views a sparring partner. They do not see an enemy trying to hurt them. They see a teacher helping them grow. The partner's attacks reveal weaknesses to strengthen. The partner's pressure forces adaptation. Without the sparring partner, there would be no improvement. The resistance is not opposed to the goal. The resistance is essential to the goal. This is true in every domain of growth. The musician needs the resistance of difficult passages to develop skill. The writer needs the resistance of blank pages to develop voice. The entrepreneur needs the resistance of market challenges to develop business acumen. The parent needs the resistance of difficult moments to develop wisdom. In every case, the thing that feels like opposition is actually the force that creates growth. Consider the gym. The weights are literally resistance. You could think of them as obstacles, heavy things that are hard to lift. But no one who understands training sees them that way. The weights are tools for growth. The heavier they are, the more they build. The resistance is the point. Now extend this understanding to every difficulty in your life. The challenging coworker is building your patience and communication skills. The financial pressure is building your resourcefulness and discipline. The health obstacle is building your resilience and self-care. The difficult relationship is building your capacity for love and boundaries. None of this means you should seek difficulty for its own sake or stay in harmful situations. But it does mean that the difficulties you encounter on the path to your goals are not separate from those goals. They are part of how you reach them. What if you could view all of life's difficulties this way? Not as enemies attacking you, but as sparring partners training you. Not as obstacles blocking your path, but as weights building your strength. Not as problems to be solved once and forgotten, but as teachers offering ongoing education. This reframe changes everything about how difficulty feels. When your sparring partner lands a hit, you do not cry and go home. You learn from it and try again. When life lands a hit, you can respond the same way. Not because you are pretending it does not hurt, but because you understand what the hurt is for. Every difficulty is a sparring partner offering to make you stronger. Every struggle is a teacher presenting a lesson. Every moment of suck is an opportunity in disguise. When you truly internalize this, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" And that question changes everything. Now let us get practical. Theory is useful, but transformation happens through action. Here is a protocol for deliberately building your discomfort tolerance through daily practice. The core principle is simple. Expose yourself to voluntary hardship in small, controlled doses and gradually increase the dosage over time. Just like you would build physical strength through progressive resistance training, you can build mental and emotional strength through progressive discomfort training. Start with physical challenges because they offer the clearest feedback and the most straightforward implementation. Cold exposure is one of the most accessible options. Most people have a shower. Most showers have cold water. Most people desperately avoid letting that cold water touch them. Here is your first challenge. At the end of your next shower, turn the water to cold and stay under it for 30 seconds. That is it. 30 seconds of voluntary discomfort. It will not feel like nothing. Your body will revolt. Your skin will scream. Every instinct will tell you to get out. And you will stay anyway. Not because it feels good, but because you are building something more important than momentary comfort. You are building the capacity to choose discomfort. After a week of 30 seconds, increase to 45, then 60, then 90. The cold does not become less cold, but your relationship with it changes. What once felt unbearable becomes merely uncomfortable. What once seemed impossible becomes routine. This is not about the cold itself. Cold showers will not change your life, but the capacity you build by taking them will. You are training yourself to do hard things, and that training transfers everywhere. Add physical challenges throughout your day. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Park far from the entrance instead of close. Do 5 extra reps when you want to stop. Hold that plank for 30 more seconds. Walk instead of drive when you can. Each small choice to embrace discomfort is a repetition that builds strength. These micro-challenges might seem trivial. What difference does it make if you park close or far? What possible benefit comes from a few extra stairs? The benefit is not in the physical challenge itself. The benefit is in the choosing. Every time you choose the harder option, you are voting for your identity as someone who embraces difficulty. Every time you take the easy route when the hard route is available, you are voting for your identity as someone who avoids challenge. The physical effect of parking far away is negligible. The psychological effect of choosing it deliberately is profound. Think of these micro-challenges as practice reps for bigger decisions. You are training your decision-making muscle to default to the harder option. When a truly important choice comes along, one where the stakes actually matter, your brain will have a well-worn groove to follow. Choose the challenge. Embrace the difficulty. Do the hard thing. Now add mental challenges. Your brain has become accustomed to easy entertainment and constant stimulation. Challenge it with something demanding instead. Read a difficult book that requires actual thought. Learn something complex that does not come naturally. Practice a skill that frustrates you. Sit with a problem until you solve it instead of Googling the answer immediately. Set aside time each day for deliberate mental discomfort. 20 minutes of focused learning on something challenging. No phone, no distractions, no giving up when it gets hard. Just you and your brain and something difficult. Notice when your attention wants to flee and gently bring it back. This is mental resistance training. It builds cognitive muscle just like physical training builds physical muscle. The key to all of this is consistency and progression. Random acts of discomfort do not build systematic capacity. You need daily practice, like brushing your teeth or eating meals. And you need gradual increase, always pushing slightly beyond where you were yesterday. Stack your small discomforts for compound effect. Cold shower in the morning, stairs instead of elevator at work, extra reps at the gym, difficult reading before bed. None of these individually is life-changing, but stacked together, practiced consistently, increased progressively, they fundamentally reshape who you are and what you can handle. Keep track of what you are doing. Not complicated tracking, just enough to ensure you are actually progressing and not just thinking about progressing. A simple note at the end of each day. What discomfort did I embrace today? What did I avoid? This awareness itself is a form of productive discomfort. Most people do not want to look at their own patterns. Now let us talk about the most critical moment in any struggle, the moment when everything in you wants to quit. You know this moment. You have met it 1,000 times. It shows up when your muscles are burning and you still have reps to go. When your lungs are screaming and the finish line is still far away. When the work is tedious and the deadline is distant. When the conversation is hard and escape is available. When the learning curve is steep and giving up is easy. This is the moment that separates the people who grow from the people who stagnate. Not the moment of beginning, which anyone can manage on motivation and enthusiasm. The moment of continuing, when motivation has fled and enthusiasm has died, and all that is left is the choice. Let me introduce you to the 10 more technique. When you hit the quit moment, when every part of you says stop, you do not argue with yourself. You do not try to convince yourself to continue indefinitely. You just do 10 more. 10 more seconds of cold water. 10 more reps of the exercise. 10 more pages of the difficult book. 10 more minutes of the hard conversation. 10 more attempts at the skill that frustrates you. A small, specific, achievable target that moves you past the quit moment without requiring infinite commitment. Something magical happens when you do 10 more. Often, the quit moment passes. The discomfort that seemed unbearable becomes bearable again. You find you can do another 10, and another. The quit moment was a false summit. There was more capacity behind it all along. I want to be specific about what happens neurologically in these moments. When you push past a quit moment, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals that reward the behavior. You get a hit of dopamine for accomplishing something difficult. You get endorphins that actually reduce the perception of pain. Your brain starts associating pushing through with reward rather than punishment. This is why it gets easier over time. Not because the challenges get easier, they do not, but because your brain's response to them changes. What once triggered a full alarm response starts to trigger a challenge response instead. What once flooded you with stress hormones starts to feel like excitement. You are literally rewiring your neurology through repeated practice. But here is the crucial point. You only get this rewiring effect when you actually push through. When you stop at the quit moment, you reinforce the quit response. Your brain learns that the quit moment means quit. When you push past the quit moment, you reinforce the continue response. Your brain learns that the quit moment is just a checkpoint, not a conclusion. Every time you face the quit moment, you are casting a vote. Continue, and you vote for the identity that pushes through. Stop, and you vote for the identity that gives up. The election is ongoing. The outcome is in your hands. Even when you do stop after 10 more, you have accomplished something profound. You have overridden the quit instinct. You have pushed past the moment when your brain said no. You have proven to yourself that the limit was not where your brain said it was. Each time you do this, you weaken the authority of the quit moment. Each time, it becomes easier to say, "Not yet." The technique works because it does not require you to defeat the quit impulse with logic or willpower. It just asks you to delay your response to it. Not, "I will not quit." Just "not yet." Not, "This is fine." Just 10 more. The brain that was screaming for relief gets a promise of relief. Just 10 units from now. That promise is often enough to continue. Here is what makes this technique so powerful. Your brain is not good at dealing with infinity. When you are in pain and your only options seem to be keep going forever or quit right now, quitting feels like the only reasonable choice. But 10 more? 10 more is finite. 10 more is manageable. 10 more does not require you to commit to an endless future of suffering. It just requires you to get through the next small unit. And here is the secret. You can repeat 10 more as many times as you want. Each time you complete 10 more, you can decide to do 10 more again or not. But you make that decision from a new position, having already proven you can do more than you thought. Often the discomfort that seemed unbearable has passed. Often you find a second wind. Often 10 more becomes 20 more, becomes finishing the whole thing. I use this technique constantly. When I am deep in a difficult project and every part of me wants to stop, I do not try to convince myself to finish the whole thing. I just commit to 10 more minutes. When I am running and my lungs are burning, I do not think about the miles still ahead. I think about 10 more steps. When I am having a hard conversation and everything in me wants to change the subject, I commit to staying with it for 10 more exchanges. The technique works because it meets your brain where it is. It does not deny that you want to stop. It does not argue that stopping is wrong. It just asks for a small delay. And in that small delay, everything changes. Apply this everywhere. When you want to skip the workout, promise yourself 10 more minutes, then decide. When you want to end the hard conversation, say 10 more exchanges before you bail. When you want to give up on learning something difficult, commit to 10 more attempts first. The quit moment loses its power when you stop treating it as final. But there is a deeper technique here, one that works before you even reach the quit moment. It is called decision-free commitment. The quit moment has power because it presents itself as a decision. Should I continue or should I stop? The moment you engage with that question, you have already lost half the battle, because now your brain has to weigh options, calculate costs and benefits, and negotiate between present comfort and future gain. And in that negotiation, present comfort usually wins. The solution is to remove the decision entirely, not to decide to continue, but to never let stopping be an option in the first place. Before you begin any difficult endeavor, set the parameters. I will run for 30 minutes no matter what. I will complete this chapter before I take a break. I will have this conversation until we reach a resolution. Then the quit moment has nothing to work with. It can still make you uncomfortable, but it cannot present you with a choice because you already made your choice before you started. This is why commitments work better than intentions. An intention leaves room for negotiation. A commitment closes that room. An intention says, I will try to work out today. A commitment says, I work out every day at 6 a.m., period, end of discussion. When 6 a.m. comes, there is no decision to make. The decision was made once, long ago, and it applies forever. Build commitment structures that remove escape routes. Tell someone else what you are going to do so accountability exists. Pay in advance for things you might skip. Set up your environment so the hard thing is easier to do than to avoid. Make the commitment public so backing out has social cost. Whatever it takes to convert this is hard into this is happening. And when you find yourself negotiating with your weaker self, remember that you are always dealing with two voices, the voice that wants growth and the voice that wants comfort, the voice that takes the long view and the voice that can only see right now. Your job is to put the growth voice in charge before the situation begins, so the comfort voice does not get a vote when things get difficult. There is one more technique for the quit moment, perhaps the most powerful of all. It is the technique of competing with yourself. The reason the quit moment is so seductive is that it offers immediate relief from discomfort. But there is something that can compete with immediate relief, immediate satisfaction, the satisfaction of proving something to yourself. When you are in the depths of struggle, focus on how good it will feel to finish. Not days from now, not when the results show up, but in the next few minutes. The surge of pride when you complete what you started. The quiet triumph of knowing you did not give up. The respect you will feel for yourself when you look in the mirror tonight. These are immediate rewards that compete with the immediate reward of quitting. And unlike the relief of quitting, which fades into disappointment, these rewards compound into lasting change. So when the quit moment comes, do not just think about how bad continuing feels. Think about how good completing will feel. Not in the abstract future, but in the very near future. Make the competition fair. Immediate gratification from quitting versus immediate gratification from finishing. When you frame it that way, finishing starts to win. Now let us explore something crucial that transforms how you experience difficulty. Every struggle you face exists within a story. Your ability to tell a useful story about your suffering determines whether that suffering destroys you or builds you. Humans are meaning-making creatures. We cannot help it. We take raw experience and weave it into narrative. This happened, then this. And it meant this. The event itself is never the whole picture. The story we tell about the event shapes how we remember it, how we feel about it, and how we move forward from it. When you face difficulty, your brain is automatically generating a story. The question is whether you are aware of that story and whether you are choosing it deliberately. Most people let their brains tell whatever story comes naturally, which is usually some version of "this is terrible, and I am a victim." Then they wonder why their difficulties feel so crushing. But you can take control of the narrative. You can become the author of your own struggle story. And in doing so, you can transform the meaning of everything you face. Think about the classic hero's journey that appears in myths and stories across every culture. The hero starts in the ordinary world, receives a call to adventure, faces trials and challenges, nearly fails in a supreme ordeal, and ultimately returns transformed with a gift for the world. Notice what is at the center of that journey: trials, challenges, the supreme ordeal. The hero does not become a hero by avoiding difficulty. The hero becomes a hero by facing it. The struggles are not obstacles to heroism. They are the path to it. Every movie you have ever loved follows this pattern. Every book that moved you, every real-life hero you admire, they all went through the fire. They all faced the dragon. They all embraced the suck, whether they called it that or not. Luke Skywalker does not become a Jedi by staying safe on Tatooine. He becomes a Jedi by leaving home, facing failure, confronting evil, and nearly dying multiple times. Frodo does not save Middle-earth by staying in the Shire. He saves it by walking into Mordor, carrying a burden that almost destroys him. Every hero you can think of becomes a hero through struggle. And you, right now, are in your own hero's journey. You might not see it that way. You might see your life as ordinary, your challenges as mundane, your struggles as meaningless. But that is only because you are inside the story, unable to see the full arc. From a larger perspective, every difficulty you face is a call to adventure. Every obstacle is a threshold guardian testing your commitment. Every moment of suffering is the supreme ordeal, forging you into who you are meant to become. And every time you push through, every time you embrace the suck, you are moving closer to the transformation that awaits. What if you viewed your life this way? What if every difficulty you face is part of your hero's journey? Not random suffering inflicted on you by an indifferent universe, but necessary trials that are forging you into the person you are meant to become. This is not about pretending bad things are good. It is about recognizing that bad things can be useful, that pain can have purpose, that struggle can be meaningful. The event itself does not change, but your relationship to it does. And that changes everything. Start writing your struggle autobiography in real time. When you face something difficult, actively narrate it as part of your larger journey. This challenge is teaching me resilience. This failure is revealing where I need to grow. This painful moment is the turning point where everything changes. You are not lying to yourself. You are choosing which true story to live inside. And the story you choose shapes the person you become. There is a technique I want to share that uses your future self as a resource for your present struggle. It is called future self-visualization, and it can be remarkably powerful when you are in the depths of difficulty. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself 1 year from now. But not just any version of yourself, the version that embraced every difficulty, pushed through every quit moment, did the hard things consistently for 12 straight months. What does that person look like? How do they carry themselves? What are they capable of that you currently are not? Really see this person. Notice their confidence, their capability, the quiet strength that comes from a year of choosing growth over comfort. This is not fantasy. This is a possible future that exists on the other side of choices you have not yet made. Now imagine that future self looking back at your current struggle, the difficulty you are facing right now, the challenge that seems so overwhelming in this moment. How does your future self view it? From that vantage point, with all that growth behind them, how significant does this current struggle appear? Almost certainly, Your future self views your current difficulty with perspective, not dismissing it, but seeing it as one step in a longer journey, a necessary challenge on the path to becoming who they are. Your future self might even be grateful for this current struggle because of how it contributed to their transformation. When you are suffering in the present, borrow that future perspective. Ask yourself what advice your future self would give. Remember that the struggle that feels infinite right now will be a memory soon. Know that you are building toward something that makes the current difficulty worthwhile. Some people find it helpful to write letters from their future self to their present self, describing the transformation that occurred, expressing gratitude for the hard choices that were made, offering encouragement from the other side. These letters become anchors during difficult times, reminders of where the path leads. Your future self is not a guaranteed outcome. It is a possibility that depends on what you do today. But holding that possibility clearly in mind can give you the strength to do what today requires. Now let me tell you about someone who discovered the power of story in her struggle. Her name was Sarah, and she almost gave up on everything before she learned to reframe. Sarah had been training for months to run her first ultramarathon, 50 miles through mountain terrain. It was supposed to be a personal transformation, a challenge that would prove to herself that she could do hard things. At mile 32, something broke inside her. Not physically, though her body was certainly suffering. Something broke mentally. She had been grinding through pain for hours, and suddenly she could not remember why she was doing any of this. She stopped running and sat down on a rock. Other runners passed her. She did not care. She started constructing arguments for why quitting was actually the smart choice. Her body was damaged. Continuing might cause permanent injury. There was nothing to prove. Nobody would blame her. The thoughts came faster and faster. Then something happened. A runner passed her, an older woman who must have been 60 years old. The woman was clearly suffering, moving slowly, face twisted with effort. But she was still moving. She glanced at Sarah sitting on the rock and said 3 words without slowing down. Part of it. Sarah did not understand at first. Part of what? But as she sat there watching the woman continue up the trail, something clicked. Part of it. The suffering was not separate from the goal. The suffering was part of it. The whole point of being out here was to struggle and push through. The desire to quit was not evidence that she should quit. It was evidence that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Sarah got up and started walking, then jogging, then running. She finished that race in just over 12 hours. Not fast, not pretty, but finished. Afterward, Sarah could not stop thinking about those 3 words. Part of it. She started applying them everywhere. When work got hard, she would remind herself that the difficulty was part of building a meaningful career. When relationships required effort, she would remember that effort was part of building deep connection. When she wanted to grow, but it hurt, she would tell herself that hurt was part of it. The difficulty had not changed, but her story about the difficulty had, and that made all the difference. There is something else that dramatically impacts your ability to embrace the suck. It is not often discussed in conversations about grit and perseverance. It is the social dimension of struggle. We are not designed to suffer alone. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans faced difficulty together. We hunted in groups, built shelters in communities, survived hardship as tribes. The lone individual facing challenge is a modern anomaly, and our psychology has not caught up. When you try to embrace the suck in isolation, you are fighting against evolutionary programming. Your brain interprets solitary struggle as evidence of danger. If you were safe, you would be with the tribe. The fact that you are alone means something is wrong. This creates additional stress on top of the difficulty itself. But when you struggle with others, everything changes. The discomfort becomes shared, which makes it feel lighter. The commitment becomes public, which makes it stronger. The journey becomes witnessed, which makes it meaningful. This is why group fitness classes outperform solo workouts for most people. Why study groups help students learn more than studying alone. Why support groups help people change behaviors that seemed impossible to change individually. There is power in shared struggle that multiplies each person's individual capacity. Most people hide their struggles because they are ashamed of them. They present a polished surface to the world while suffering alone behind closed doors. They think that admitting difficulty is admitting weakness. But actually, the opposite is true. When you share your struggle with others, you are demonstrating courage. You are showing that you trust them enough to be vulnerable. You are creating opportunities for connection that polished surfaces never allow. And you are often discovering that others face the same difficulties you thought were yours alone. There is profound relief in discovering you are not uniquely broken, that others feel the same fear, face the same resistance, fight the same battles. What felt like personal failure becomes shared human experience. What felt isolating becomes connecting. Find your hard thing tribe, people who are deliberately seeking growth, people who understand that comfort is not the goal, people who will celebrate your struggles as well as your successes. These relationships will amplify your capacity more than any solo technique ever could. Build accountability through shared discomfort. Find a workout partner who will suffer alongside you. Find a learning buddy who will struggle with difficult material together. Find a friend who will do hard things with you, not despite the hardness, but because of it. There is a particular magic that happens when two or more people commit to something difficult together. They become more than the sum of their parts. They can push each other past individual limits. They can hold each other accountable when motivation flags. They can witness each other's transformation in real time. I knew two friends who decided to train for an Ironman triathlon together. Neither of them had ever done anything like it. One was a former smoker who had only recently started exercising. The other was a stressed-out executive who had not been athletic since high school. The first months were brutal. They trained in the early morning darkness because it was the only time that worked for both schedules. One of them wanted to quit almost every week, but whenever one of them wavered, the other held firm. When one was weak, the other was strong. When one wanted to sleep in, the other was at their door at 4:30 in the morning anyway. They finished that Ironman side by side, not with impressive times, but they finished. And what they built in those months of shared suffering was something neither could have built alone. When I asked them about it afterward, one of them said something that stayed with me. I was not training for a race. I was training to become someone who does not let his friends down. Every time I wanted to quit, I thought about him waiting for me. I could not abandon that. The discomfort of training was nothing compared to the discomfort of breaking my word. That is the power of shared struggle. It converts personal weakness into interpersonal strength. It makes quitting more uncomfortable than continuing. It provides accountability that self-discipline alone cannot match. Think about who in your life might be ready for shared struggle. Who might be hungry for growth in the way you are becoming hungry? Who might benefit from someone who will push them and allow themselves to be pushed? This is not about finding people who will make things easy. It is about finding people who will make hard things possible. Now we need to talk about something important: the line between productive struggle and destructive suffering, between grit and self-destruction, between embracing the suck and being consumed by it. Not all perseverance is heroic. Sometimes what looks like determination is actually stubbornness driving someone toward a cliff. Sometimes what feels like resilience is actually denial, preventing someone from seeing reality. Sometimes embracing the suck becomes a way of avoiding necessary change. There are warning signs that struggle has become stuck, that you are no longer building but breaking, that the suck you are embracing is the wrong kind of suck entirely. The first warning sign is diminishing returns. If your effort keeps increasing but your progress has stopped, something is wrong. Growth requires struggle, but struggle does not guarantee growth. If you have been pushing hard at something for an extended period with no forward movement, it might be time to change approach rather than push harder. The second warning sign is compounding damage. Productive discomfort is temporary by nature. It hurts while you are in it, but you recover and come back stronger. Destructive suffering accumulates. It bleeds into the rest of your life. It diminishes your capacity over time rather than building it. Pay attention to what happens after your struggles. Are you recovering and adapting, or are you accumulating wear without recovery? The former is training, the latter is damage. The third warning sign is lost purpose. Productive struggle is connected to something meaningful. There is a reason you are enduring it. Destructive suffering loses that connection. You keep pushing without remembering why. The struggle becomes its own point, which is no point at all. If you cannot articulate why you are suffering, if the goal has become vague or forgotten, you may be embracing the wrong suck. The fourth warning sign is isolation from joy. Some discomfort is natural in any worthwhile pursuit, but if your whole life has become discomfort, something is wrong. The point of building capacity is to live more fully, not to suffer more constantly. If you have forgotten what enjoyment feels like, you have gone too far. I have seen people fall into this trap. They discover the power of embracing difficulty and become addicted to it. They push and push without ever easing up. They wear their exhaustion as a badge of honor. They mistake self-destruction for discipline. This is not what we are aiming for. The goal is not maximum suffering. The goal is optimal growth. And optimal growth requires cycles of stress and recovery, challenge and restoration, pushing and easing. Pay attention to these signals in yourself. Are you recovering between challenges? Are you still capable of joy? Do you remember why you started this journey in the first place? If the answers to these questions are concerning, it may be time to recalibrate. Here is a question worth considering carefully. Is there any struggle in your life that has stopped serving your growth and started serving your avoidance? This is a tricky one, so let me explain what I mean. Sometimes we throw ourselves into productive-looking hardship to avoid facing something else. The person who overworks to avoid problems at home. the athlete who overtrains to avoid feelings of inadequacy, the learner who takes on endless challenges to avoid commitment to any single path. These struggles look like growth but function as hiding. Be honest with yourself about what you are really doing. Are you embracing the suck to become stronger? Or are you embracing the suck to avoid something you should be facing? Strategic recovery is not weakness, it is wisdom. The strongest warriors know when to advance and when to retreat. The best athletes know when to train hard and when to rest. The most effective learners know when to push and when to consolidate. Rest is not the opposite of growth. Rest is part of growth. When you train muscles, you are actually breaking them down. They grow back stronger during recovery, not during the workout itself. The same is true for mental and emotional capacity. The struggle breaks you down. The rest builds you back up. Skip the rest, and you are just breaking yourself without building anything. Build recovery rituals into your practice of embracing the suck. For every period of intense challenge, plan a period of intentional restoration. Not passive collapse, but active recovery. Sleep, nature, connection, play. The things that refuel your capacity so you can struggle well again. Think of it as periodization, a concept from athletic training. You do not train at maximum intensity all the time. You vary the load across cycles, hard weeks and easy weeks, push phases and recovery phases. This variation produces better results than constant maximum effort, which just produces burnout. How are you periodizing your life? Where are your recovery phases? If you cannot identify them, you are probably overtraining in everything, which means you are underperforming in everything too. Let me be specific about what recovery looks like when you are embracing the suck properly. Physical recovery means adequate sleep, not the bare minimum you can function on, but the full amount your body needs to repair and grow. It means nutrition that supports your challenges rather than undermines them. It means movement on rest days, but movement that restores rather than depletes. Mental recovery means time away from demanding cognitive tasks. It means letting your mind wander without stimulation. It means protecting time for activities that replenish your mental energy rather than drain it. Reading for pleasure. Conversations with friends. Time in nature without your phone. Emotional recovery means processing what you are feeling rather than pushing through it indefinitely. It means allowing yourself to feel the fear, the frustration, the grief, and the joy that come with living fully. It means connection with people who see you and accept you. What does your recovery rhythm look like? Do you have daily practices that restore you, weekly rituals that replenish your reserves, monthly or quarterly breaks that allow deeper renewal? If you cannot answer these questions, you need to build that structure before you can embrace the suck effectively. Pushing harder is not always the answer. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is push less, temporarily, so you can push more, sustainably. So far, we have been talking about embracing the suck as something you do. Now, I want to talk about embracing the suck as something you are. The shift from behavior to identity. There is a fundamental difference between someone who does hard things and someone who is the kind of person who does hard things. The first is about actions. The second is about identity. And identity is far more powerful than action alone. Consider the difference between I am trying to exercise more and I am an athlete. The first frame positions exercise as something external, something you are attempting to add to your life, something that is not quite natural for you yet. The second frame positions exercise as an expression of who you already are. Athletes exercise. That is what they do. If you are an athlete, exercise is not a choice you make. It is a natural consequence of being yourself. The same is true for embracing the suck. There is a difference between, I am trying to push through difficulty, and I am the kind of person who embraces challenge. The first is effortful. The second is natural. The first requires constant willpower. The second requires just being who you are. Identity change is the highest leverage intervention available. When your identity shifts, your behaviors shift automatically. When you become someone who embraces the suck, you do not have to convince yourself to embrace the suck. You just do what people like you do. So, how do you shift your identity? Not through affirmation alone, though language matters. Identity shifts through repeated evidence. Every time you embrace discomfort, you provide evidence that you are the kind of person who embraces discomfort. Every time you push through the quit moment, you prove that you are the kind of person who pushes through. The actions you take cast votes for the identity you are building. Think of it like an election inside your psyche. Every action is a vote. Enough votes, and a clear winner emerges. If most of your actions are comfort-seeking, your identity settles as a comfort seeker. If most of your actions are challenge-embracing, your identity settles as a challenge embracer. You become what you repeatedly do. This is why the daily practices matter so much, not because any single cold shower transforms you, but because each cold shower is a vote. Each hard conversation is a vote. Each extra rep is a vote. Enough votes, and your identity shifts. And once your identity shifts, voting becomes automatic. Start thinking of yourself differently. Right now, today. Not I am someone who is trying to embrace discomfort, but I am someone who embraces discomfort. This is who I am now. This is what I do. When you encounter difficulty, remind yourself of this identity. People like me embrace this. This is just what we do. This might feel like pretending at first. You might think you are lying to yourself. But consider this. Every identity you have ever held started as a pretense. Before you were actually good at your job, you played the role of someone who could do that job. Before you were actually confident in social situations, you acted confident. Before you were actually a morning person or a runner or a healthy eater, you tried on those identities and saw how they fit. Identity is not discovered. Identity is constructed through repeated action. You do not find out who you are and then act accordingly. You act in certain ways repeatedly, and then become the person who acts that way. The action comes first. The identity follows. So when you act like someone who embraces discomfort, even though you do not fully feel like that person yet, you are not pretending. You are building. You are laying the foundation for an identity that will eventually feel as natural as breathing. There is another aspect of identity that matters here. The stories you tell about yourself to others. When people ask what you are up to, what you are working on, who you are becoming, what do you say? Start talking about yourself as someone who seeks challenge. When people ask how you are, tell them you are training for something difficult. When they ask what you do for fun, mention the hard things you are pursuing. This is not bragging. This is identity construction through declaration. When you say out loud, I am training for an ultra-marathon, or I am building a business, or I am learning a difficult skill, you are creating social accountability. People will ask you about it. They will expect you to follow through. The public declaration becomes a commitment you cannot easily abandon. And more importantly, you are hearing yourself say it. You are programming your own mind with the identity you want to hold. Every time you describe yourself as someone who does hard things, you make it a little more true. The language shift from I have to I get to I am tracks this progression. Early on, discomfort feels like obligation. I have to work out. I have to have that hard conversation. I have to push through. This is the willpower stage, and it is exhausting. Then comes the reframe. I get to work out. I get to have that conversation. I get to push through. This is the gratitude stage, and it is more sustainable, but still effortful. Finally comes identity. I work out because I am someone who works out. I have hard conversations because I am someone who values truth over comfort. I push through because that is simply who I am. This is the identity stage, and it is self-sustaining. Your aim is to reach the identity stage as quickly as possible, not by pretending you are already there, but by accumulating evidence through daily votes. Every vote counts. Every action matters. You are not just doing something, you are becoming someone. Here is a practice that accelerates identity formation. Each morning, before you face the day, spend 2 minutes affirming who you are becoming. Not vague affirmations, but specific identity statements tied to specific behaviors. I am the kind of person who chooses discomfort when comfort would make me weaker. I am the kind of person who stays in the struggle when my brain tells me to quit. I am the kind of person who sees obstacles as opportunities and resistance as a gift. I am the kind of person who has fallen in love with the suck. Say these statements out loud if you can. Feel them in your body. Then go out and vote for them with your actions. Let me explain why this practice works so well. When you state an identity out loud, you engage multiple processing centers in your brain. You are not just thinking the thought. You are producing it as speech and hearing it as sound. This multimodal engagement creates stronger neural patterns than silent thought alone. Additionally, you are making a commitment to yourself. Each statement is a promise. I am this kind of person. When you encounter a choice later in the day, you will remember that promise. Breaking it becomes harder because you explicitly told yourself who you are. The best time for these affirmations is immediately after waking. Your brain is in a suggestible state in the morning, still transitioning from the neurological patterns of sleep. Statements made during this window have an outsized impact on how you think and act for the rest of the day. Create your own affirmations if the ones I have suggested do not resonate. Make them specific to your goals and your struggles. The key is that they should state identity, not intention. Not I will try to be disciplined, but I am disciplined. Not I hope to embrace challenges, but I embrace challenges. The present tense is crucial. You are declaring who you are, not who you might become someday. By now, you have built a solid foundation for embracing the suck. You understand why comfort is a trap. You know the difference between productive and destructive discomfort. You have techniques for pushing through the quit moment. You are building identity through daily practice. Now let us take it further. Let us talk about advanced strategies for those who are ready to accelerate their transformation. The first advanced strategy is stacking discomforts. Instead of facing one challenge at a time, you deliberately combine multiple challenges for exponential growth. Consider what happens when you work out in the cold. You are dealing with physical exertion and temperature, discomfort simultaneously. Each one would be manageable alone. Together, they create a compound challenge that builds compound capacity. Your body learns to perform under multiple stressors. Your mind learns to manage complexity in adversity. Or consider having a difficult conversation while tired. Instead of waiting until you feel optimal, you deliberately tackle emotional challenge when physical resources are low. This is harder, certainly, but the capacity it builds is far greater than facing either challenge alone. Elite performers do this intuitively. They train tired, they compete injured, they perform under pressure that would crush normal people. Not because they are masochists, but because they understand compound growth. The more challenges you can handle simultaneously, the more life you can handle total. Start small with stacking. Combine 2 manageable challenges before combining 3 difficult ones. The cold shower while fasting, the difficult study session after a hard workout, the vulnerable conversation during a stressful week. Gradually increase the stack as your capacity grows. Be thoughtful about which discomforts you stack. Some combinations are complementary. Physical challenge in the morning can actually improve your capacity for mental challenge later. Emotional challenge before a workout can give you fuel to burn off. Social challenge before creative work can open you up. Other combinations are depleting. Back-to-back high-stakes conversations without recovery. Physical exhaustion immediately followed by complex learning. Emotional vulnerability when you are already overwhelmed. Learn to read your own signals and stack wisely. The goal with stacking is not maximum suffering, it is maximum growth. Some days that means pushing hard in multiple areas. Other days, it means focusing intensely on one challenge while letting others rest. The art is in knowing which approach serves you best in any given moment. As you get more experienced with embracing the suck, you will develop intuition for this. You will feel when you can stack and when you should focus. You will know when to push harder and when to ease up. This intuition is itself a form of capacity that develops through practice. The second advanced strategy is creating your own crucible experiences. A crucible is a container used for heating substances to very high temperatures. Metaphorically, it is an intense experience that transforms who you are through extreme pressure. Life occasionally provides crucibles without your asking. Loss, crisis, failure, forced change. These involuntary crucibles often create dramatic growth, but you have no control over when or how they arrive. But you can also create voluntary crucibles. Experiences so challenging that they change you fundamentally. Not just daily practice, but periodic intensive transformation. Consider what this might look like in different domains. A 30-day challenge where you commit to something difficult every single day, without exception. A solo wilderness experience where you face nature and yourself without the usual comforts. A deep retreat where you remove all distraction and face what arises. An intensive learning period where you immerse completely in something that challenges you. These voluntary crucibles compress what might take years of casual growth into weeks or days of intensive transformation. They are not for everyone and not for all times, but for those ready to accelerate, they can change everything. Design your own crucible carefully. Make it challenging enough to transform, but not so extreme that it damages. Have safety structures in place. Know your limits even as you push them. The goal is growth, not injury. The third advanced strategy is the impossible goal. This is a goal so far beyond your current capacity that you cannot achieve it through normal means. You would have to become someone fundamentally different to accomplish it. Most people set achievable goals, goals that stretch but do not break, goals that feel motivating but not terrifying. These goals are fine for incremental improvement, but they do not create transformation. The impossible goal works differently. It is not about the goal itself. It is about who you have to become to pursue it. If you set a goal to run a 4-minute mile when you can barely run a mile at all, you are not really setting a running goal. You are setting an identity goal. You are declaring that you will become the kind of person for whom such a thing is possible. The impossible goal might never be achieved. That is okay. That is not the point. The point is the becoming. The person you transform into while pursuing the impossible will accomplish things the old you never could have imagined. The goal is a compass, not a destination. What impossible goal would force you to completely transform who you are? What pursuit would require such fundamental change that the person who accomplished it would be almost unrecognizable from who you are today? That goal is calling you, not because you will definitely reach it, but because reaching for it will change everything. Let me share what impossible goals have done for people who dared to set them. A woman in her 50s decided she wanted to climb Everest. Not a small goal for someone who had never been above 15,000 feet. Not reasonable by any measure. But she set the goal anyway and began training. She never summited Everest. The window never aligned. The conditions never cooperated. But in pursuit of that impossible goal, she climbed 6 other major peaks. She transformed her body and her mind. She became an expedition leader and guide. The impossible goal she never achieved made her into someone who achieved dozens of things she never would have attempted otherwise. A man with no business experience decided he wanted to build a billion-dollar company. Absurd by any reasonable standard, but he set the goal and began working. He failed at his first 3 companies, lost money, lost years, but each failure taught him something. Each attempt brought him closer. By the time he succeeded, he was a completely different person than the one who had set the goal. The impossible had made him capable of the merely very difficult. The impossible goal is not about achievement. It is about transformation. It is about becoming the person who could achieve such a thing, even if you never do. It is about raising your ceiling so high that your new floor is above your old ceiling. What would that goal be for you? What pursuit would require you to change fundamentally? What dream have you dismissed as too unrealistic to even consider? Consider it now, not as a guaranteed outcome, but as a compass direction, the star you navigate by, even knowing you will never reach it. Now imagine this. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let your body settle wherever you are. Picture yourself waking up 1 year from now. The alarm goes off at 5 a.m., and something is different. Your body does not resist. Your mind does not negotiate. There is no dread, no bargaining, no conflict. Instead, there is something like eagerness. Not because the morning will be easy, but because you have become someone who is hungry for the hard. See yourself getting out of bed. Feel the strength in your movements. Notice the quiet confidence that has become your baseline. You are not hoping you can do hard things today. You know you can. You have proven it to yourself 1,000 times over the past year. Each day added another piece of evidence. Each challenge overcome became another brick in the foundation you stand on now. Picture yourself facing a challenge that day, something that would have stopped the old you cold, the difficult conversation, the impossible deadline, the fear that needs to be faced. Watch yourself move toward it instead of away, not with gritted teeth and white knuckles, but with something like calm focus, even something like joy. This is what you have learned, that the resistance is the path, that the obstacle is the opportunity, that the suck is the source of everything you most want to become. See yourself finishing that challenge. Not perfectly, maybe. Not easily, certainly, but finished. And notice how it feels. Not just relief, though that is there. Something deeper. Pride. Growth. The bone-deep satisfaction of being someone who does not quit. Now expand the picture. See the life that is formed around this version of you. The relationships built on real honesty, because you are no longer afraid of difficult conversations. The career that has grown because you take on challenges others avoid. The body that has strengthened because you stopped negotiating with discomfort. The mind that has expanded because you push it past its usual limits. All of this is possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. It exists in your future as a potential, waiting to be realized. The distance between here and there is measured in daily choices, in cold showers and difficult books and honest conversations and extra reps, in all the small moments where you choose growth over comfort. Now, open your eyes and return to this moment. The vision you just saw is not fantasy, it is architecture. A blueprint for who you could become if you embrace the suck starting now. What would the person in that vision do today? Right now? In the next hour? That is your next step. Here is another visualization to carry with you. This one is for the moment when everything feels impossible. Picture a forge. Not a modern factory, but an ancient blacksmith's workshop. Fire burning hot enough to make iron glow. An anvil worn smooth by countless strikes. A hammer waiting to shape metal into something useful. You are the iron in this image, raw material with potential but without form. The fire is the difficulty you face. The hammer is the force that shapes you. The anvil is the resistance that makes shaping possible. Now, picture the blacksmith holding a piece of raw iron. What happens if they never put it in the fire? The iron stays cold and brittle, useless, unable to become anything. What happens if they put it in the fire, but never strike it? The iron gets hot, but never changes shape. The heat alone accomplishes nothing without the force to transform it. What happens if they strike it without heating it first? The iron shatters. The force destroys rather than shapes. But when they heat the iron properly and strike it while it is hot, something miraculous happens. The metal yields. It changes shape. It becomes stronger than it was before. The sword, the tool, the work of art emerges from raw material through fire and force. This is what difficulty does for you. The challenges that heat you up, the pressures that strike you, the resistance that shapes you. Without them, you stay raw and unformed. With them, properly applied, you become something magnificent. The next time you are in the fire, remember, you are not being destroyed, you are being forged. What would the person in that vision do today? Let me tell you about the moment when everything finally clicked for someone named David. After months of struggling with these ideas, months of trying and failing to embrace the suck, something finally shifted. David had been reading about discomfort tolerance for months. He understood the concepts intellectually. He agreed with everything he learned. And yet his life had not changed much. He still chose comfort most of the time. He still negotiated with his weaker self and usually lost. He had become very good at thinking about embracing the suck while continuing to avoid it. Then came a Monday morning in January. Nothing special about it. Alarm went off at 5:30, same as always. David's body said no, same as always. But this time, something was different. Instead of thinking about why he should get up, David just got up. No negotiation, no bargaining, no thinking about it at all. His feet hit the cold floor, and his body moved toward the shower. He turned on the cold water. Not the gradual temperature decrease he had been trying. Full cold from the start. His breath caught, his skin screamed, his mind generated all the usual reasons to get out. And David stayed. Not because he was trying to stay, not because he was using some technique, but because staying was just what happened. He had somehow stopped fighting with himself and just did the thing. 60 seconds passed, then 90, then 2 minutes. David turned off the water and stood there, shivering and amazed. He had not used willpower. He had not overcome anything. He had just stopped resisting what he actually wanted to do. That day, David had 5 conversations he had been avoiding, not because he forced himself, because avoiding them suddenly felt harder than having them. The avoidance had become the suck, and he no longer wanted to embrace it. That night, David sat down and tried to understand what had happened. He wrote in his journal, trying to capture the shift. "I stopped trying to want to do hard things," he wrote. "I realized I already wanted to do them. The resistance was not protecting me from discomfort. The resistance was the discomfort. All I had to do was stop resisting, and the path was clear." Looking back, David traced the shift to an accumulation of small changes. The cold showers he had been taking irregularly for months, the difficult books he had been reading, the small challenges he had been seeking. None of them had seemed transformational in the moment, but they had been casting votes, and eventually enough votes had accumulated to change the election. What happened to David happens to everyone who stays the course long enough. The struggle stops feeling like struggle. The suck stops feeling like suck. What was once discomfort becomes just another thing you do. Not easy, exactly, but natural, expected, even welcomed. This is the transformation that awaits you, not through a single moment of insight, but through daily practice. Not through one dramatic choice, but through 1,000 small ones. The person who embraces the suck does not wake up one morning as a different person. They wake up as the same person who has cast so many votes for discomfort that discomfort has become home. There is something beautiful about this gradual transformation. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more fully yourself. The person who embraces the suck is not a stranger. It is you, liberated from the constraints of comfort-seeking. It is you, with all the potential you always had, finally expressed. Think about a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. The butterfly was always there, encoded in the caterpillar's very being. The transformation did not create something from nothing. It released what was always present, but not yet manifest. You are that caterpillar, the person you will become. Through embracing the suck is already inside you. The courage is there, the strength is there, the capacity is there. You just have not accessed it yet because you have been protected by a cocoon of comfort. When you embrace the suck, you are not adding something new. You are removing the barriers that have kept your potential locked away. You are giving yourself permission to be who you were, always meant to be. You are closer to this transformation than you know. Every time you have pushed through something hard, you have moved closer. Every time you have chosen growth over comfort, you have taken a step. You may feel like you are just beginning, but you have already begun. You may feel far from your goal, but the distance is closing with every choice you make. Now let us map out your first 30 days of intentional transformation, not abstract principles, but concrete practices that will shift your relationship with discomfort starting today. Day 1 through 7 is about establishing the foundation. Cold exposure at the end of every shower. Start with 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds of voluntary discomfort to begin each day. This is your anchor practice, the one thing you do no matter what. Add one small physical challenge per day. Extra stairs, a longer walk, a few more reps of something. Nothing heroic, just enough to prove you can choose the harder option. Each evening, write one sentence answering this question. Where did I embrace discomfort today? Just one sentence. Build the habit of reflection before you build the habit of extensive journaling. Day 8 through 14 is about deepening the practice. Increase cold exposure to 60 seconds. Your body is starting to adapt. Honor that adaptation by asking for more. Add a daily mental challenge. 20 minutes of difficult reading or learning, something that makes your brain work harder than scrolling social media ever could. Notice when you want to quit and continue anyway. Continue the evening reflection, but expand it. Where did I embrace discomfort? Where did I avoid it? What will I do differently tomorrow? This is not self-criticism. This is self-awareness in service of growth. Day 15 through 21 is about expanding the scope. Increase cold exposure to 90 seconds. Add a social or emotional challenge each day. One honest conversation you have been avoiding. One vulnerable share with someone who matters. One ask you have been afraid to make. This is often where the real transformation begins. Physical discomfort is relatively straightforward. You know what you are facing. You can prepare for it. Social and emotional discomfort is more unpredictable. You do not know how the other person will respond. You cannot control the outcome. You are genuinely vulnerable in a way that cold water cannot replicate. Start with lower stakes vulnerabilities. Tell someone what you appreciate about them. Ask for help with something small. Share an opinion you usually keep to yourself. These are not huge risks, but they build the muscle for bigger ones. As the week progresses, increase the stakes. Have the conversation you have been putting off for months. Ask for what you really want, not the watered-down version. Share something true about yourself that you have been hiding. Each act of courage builds capacity for the next. Notice the quit moments throughout your day, not just during formal challenges, but everywhere. The moment you want to check your phone during difficult work, the moment you want to change the subject during hard conversation, the moment you want to stop thinking about something uncomfortable. Notice these moments and practice pushing past them. Pay attention to how often your brain offers you exits. Count them if you can. You might be surprised how many times per hour your mind suggests an escape from whatever is slightly uncomfortable. Each of those suggestions is an opportunity. Each one is a chance to vote for the identity you are building. Day 22 through 30 is about integration. Cold exposure is now a natural part of your morning. You do not think about it, you just do it. This is the first practice that has moved from effortful to automatic. Begin stacking challenges. Work out in the morning before coffee. Have a difficult conversation after a tiring day. Study something hard while slightly hungry. Build your capacity for compound discomfort. On day 30, design your next 30-day challenge. You are not done. You are never done. But you have established a foundation. You have proven you can build new capacity. Now it is time to choose your next frontier. Throughout these 30 days, remember the core truth. You are not just doing hard things. You are becoming someone who does hard things. Every day is a vote. Every choice matters. You are electing a new identity, one decision at a time. And remember to rest. Day 7, Day 14, Day 21, and Day 28 should include deliberate recovery, a longer sleep, a gentler practice, a moment to consolidate what you have built. Recovery is not weakness. Recovery is wisdom. Now consider this question as you begin. What is the single hardest thing you could do today that would benefit your life? Not the hardest thing imaginable, not something reckless or destructive, but the hardest useful thing, the conversation you most need to have, the task you most need to complete, the change you most need to make. What if you did that thing today? What if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment or the right feeling and just did it? This is what embracing the suck looks like in practice. Not endless cold showers and extreme challenges, but the willingness to do the hard, useful thing now instead of later. The courage to face what needs to be faced. The commitment to stop waiting and start doing. The life you want lives on the other side of the suck you have been avoiding. That is not motivational cliché. That is structural truth. Everything you want requires something difficult to get it. The career requires hard work. The relationship requires hard conversations. The health requires hard choices. The growth requires hard challenges. There is no way around the suck. There is only through. But here is what changes everything. What waits on the other side is worth every moment of difficulty required to get there. The pride of accomplishment, the strength that comes from struggle, the person you become through the process. These are not just consolation prizes for suffering. They are the actual point. They are what makes a life meaningful instead of just comfortable. Think about the end of your life. Picture yourself looking back over all your years. What do you want to see? Do you want to see a life carefully arranged to minimize discomfort? A life spent avoiding anything that might hurt? A life constrained to only what felt easy? Or do you want to see a life fully lived? A life of challenges met and obstacles overcome? A life where you pushed yourself to become everything you could become? A life of growth and contribution and transformation? Most people, when they really think about it, want the second kind of life. They want to have lived fully. They want to have tested themselves. They want to look back and know they did not waste their potential on comfort. But knowing what you want at the end of your life and choosing what you want in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon are two different things. The end-of-life perspective is clear. The Tuesday perspective is foggy. And so people who genuinely want lives of courage and growth make daily choices of comfort and stagnation. This is why the daily practice matters so much. It bridges the gap between what you want for your life and what you choose in the moment. When you have a habit of embracing discomfort, you do not have to rely on willpower to make the right choice. The habit carries you through. Think about someone you admire, someone who has lived the kind of life you want to live, someone who has accomplished things that seem remarkable. Now think about their relationship with discomfort. Were they someone who avoided difficulty whenever possible, or were they someone who leaned into it? Every person you admire, without exception, learned to embrace the suck. They might not call it that. They might not have had a philosophy about it, but their actions tell the story. They did hard things. They faced challenges. They pushed through when others would have quit. That is how they became admirable in the first place. You are not different from those people. You are not made of different material. You do not have less potential. The only difference between you and them is what you have been willing to embrace. The only gap is in the discomfort you have been willing to tolerate. Close that gap, and everything changes. The choice between those lives is made in moments like this one, in the daily decisions about what you will embrace and what you will avoid, in the quit moments and the cold showers and the difficult conversations and the impossible goals. The choice is yours, and you make it every single day. What I know with certainty is this: the person who learns to embrace the suck becomes unstoppable, not because they are immune to discomfort, but because discomfort has lost its power over them. They still feel the resistance. They still hear the voice that says, "Quit," but they no longer obey that voice automatically. They have learned to feel fear and act anyway, to feel doubt and continue regardless, to feel every urge to stop and keep going. This is freedom, real freedom. Not the freedom to avoid what is hard, but the freedom to face it. Not the freedom to be comfortable, but the freedom to grow. Not the freedom from struggle, but the freedom to use struggle for transformation. This freedom is available to you, right now, today. It does not require special talent or unusual circumstances. It requires only willingness. The willingness to stop running from discomfort. The willingness to turn toward what you have been avoiding. The willingness to embrace what you have been fighting. The struggle is waiting for you. It always has been. Every difficult conversation you need to have, every challenging goal you need to pursue, every fear you need to face, every limit you need to push, it is all there, waiting patiently for you to stop resisting and start embracing. Now you know the secret. The struggle was never your enemy. It was always your teacher. The suck was never the problem. It was always the solution. What you have been running from is exactly what you need to run toward. The alarm is screaming. It is 5 in the morning. Your body says no. But you are different now. You do not hit snooze. You do not negotiate with your weaker self. You do not calculate the cost and benefit of getting up. You swing your feet to the floor. You walk toward the cold shower. You smile. Because you know something most people never learn. The path to everything you want runs directly through everything you have been avoiding. And you are finally ready to walk it. Not because it will be easy. It will not be easy. Not because it will feel good. It often will not feel good. But because you have fallen in love with what the struggle builds. You have discovered the joy hiding inside the difficulty. You have learned that the suck is not something to survive, but something to seek. This is not the end of an audiobook. This is the beginning of a love affair. Go find the hardest thing you can do today. Then embrace it. Because you now know the truth that changes everything. The struggle is not in the way. The struggle is the way. and you, finally, are ready to walk it. Welcome to your new life, the one where discomfort is a doorway, where resistance is a gift, where the suck is the source of everything worth becoming. You have learned things in this audiobook that most people never learn. You have heard truths that most people spend their lives avoiding. You have been given a map that most people do not even know exists. But knowledge is not power. Knowledge is only potential power. The real power comes from action, from taking what you have learned and putting it into practice, from facing the very discomfort you have been avoiding and embracing it fully. Tomorrow morning, the alarm will ring. It will be cold outside your blankets. It will be warm inside them, and you will have a choice to make. Every day, for the rest of your life, you will have choices like this. Small moments that seem insignificant, but actually determine everything. The choice to stay comfortable or to grow. The choice to avoid or to embrace. The choice to be who you have always been or to become someone new. What will you choose? I cannot make that choice for you. No audiobook can. No teacher, no coach, no friend, no amount of motivation can make that choice for you. You have to make it yourself, alone, in the cold of the morning or the heat of the difficult moment. But I can tell you this. If you choose to embrace the suck, if you make that choice again and again until it becomes who you are, your life will change in ways you cannot currently imagine. The person you will become is someone the current you cannot fully conceive. The experiences you will have, the capabilities you will develop, the confidence you will build. All of it exceeds what you can see from where you stand now. The path is clear. The map is in your hands. The only question left is whether you will walk it. I believe you will. I believe you are ready. I believe something in you has shifted already, just from hearing these words. Something that cannot be unshifted. Go prove me right. Welcome to the life you were always meant to live. The life of someone who embraces the suck and loves every minute of it.